Bankrupt wilderness guide Emma Hartwell inherits her reclusive uncle's collapsing Colorado ranch, her last refuge before total ruin. When her dog unearths $4 million in stolen cash, buried for 30 years, Emma faces an impossible choice. Turn in the money and stay broke. Keep it and become the criminal her uncle died as, or negotiate with the ruthless enforcer who's been hunting it for decades, while her ex-husband's suspicions and a sharp-eyed sheriff close in on the truth that could destroy her completely. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I notice there's a formatting issue in your document. It appears to contain the instruction Part 2 should begin with Marcus's hand, followed by what seems to be a duplicate of the story outline information. Based on the context, I believe you're asking me to write Part 1, Arrival at Rock Bottom, as a full 1,000-word narrative based on the outline provided. Let me create that for you. The truck's suspension groaned as Emma Hartwell turned onto the rutted dirt road, leading to what was now, technically, her property. Through the cracked windshield, the Colorado Rockies stretched endlessly gray beneath October clouds, their peaks already dusted with snow that promised a brutal winter ahead. Beside her in the passenger seat, Scout lifted his head, ears pricked forward, sensing her tension. The ranch materialized through a break in the pines like something from a nightmare. Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She'd expected bad. The lawyer's letter had warned her the property was distressed, but this was devastation. The main barn had collapsed entirely, its skeleton of blackened beams jutting toward the sky like broken ribs. Pasture fences sagged into waist-high weeds that had swallowed what might once have been paddocks or gardens. The house itself leaned slightly to the left, its porch steps rotted through, windows covered with plywood or newspapers yellowed to the color of old bone. She killed the engine and sat in silence, broken only by Scout's anxious panting. 42 years old, and this was what she had to show for it. A truck packed with garbage bags of clothes, a box of worthless business records, a dog, and a death trap of a house on 200 acres of wilderness she couldn't afford to keep. Her phone buzzed. The lawyer, right on schedule. Ms. Hartwell, just confirming we've filed the bankruptcy petition this morning. The automatic stay is in effect, so you've got breathing room from creditors, but we need to— I know, Emma said, her voice flat. 30 days to submit the full asset disclosure. 60 days until the hearing. The ranch will be listed as an asset, of course. Given its condition and location, I wouldn't expect much from the sale. But I understand. She ended the call before he could finish. Before the sympathetic tone in his voice could crack whatever was holding her together, Scout whined and pawed at her leg. Emma forced herself to move. The front door opened with a shriek of rusted hinges. Inside, the house was worse than outside, a museum of paranoia and decay. Uncle Henry had reinforced the door with additional deadbolts and a crossbar. The windows weren't just covered. They'd been boarded from the inside with heavy plywood screwed directly into the frames. In the fading afternoon light that leaked through gaps, Emma could make out a living room frozen in time. Furniture from the 1980s, newspapers stacked in yellowing towers, canned goods lining every surface, like some doomsday prepper's nightmare. The electricity was dead. Of course it was. The water, when she tried the kitchen faucet, ran rust brown for 30 seconds before clearing to something that might be drinkable. The ancient propane heater in the corner was her only hope against the cold already seeping through the walls. Scout explored cautiously, sniffing every corner, hackles occasionally rising at smells only he could detect. Emma found herself following the dog room to room, cataloguing the evidence of Uncle Henry's last decades. Dust-covered photo albums showed a younger, happier man. Henry at family gatherings in the 70s and 80s, before whatever rupture had severed him from the family. Emma had been too young to remember the details. Only that one Christmas he'd stopped coming, and no one spoke his name except in whispers. In what must have been Henry's bedroom, she found the locked metal box. Heavy, maybe a foot square, with a combination lock she had no hope of opening. She shook it, hearing papers shift inside, and set it aside for later. As darkness fell completely, Emma worked by flashlight to make the house minimally habitable. She got the propane heater working, cleared a sleeping space on the sagging couch, found blankets that smelled of mothballs but were whole. When she unpacked her own bags, her hands trembled as she pulled out the manila envelope containing her divorce papers, final and absolute as of 2 weeks ago. James's signature next to hers, ending 12 years with the stroke of a pen. She made it exactly 30 seconds before the tears came. Scout pressed against her legs, warm and solid and loyal in a way humans had never quite managed. Emma buried her face in his fur and let herself break, sobbing into the darkness of this decrepit house at the end of the world, grieving everything she'd lost, her business, her marriage, her pride, her sense of who she was supposed to be. The wilderness guide, who'd made a life on her own terms, had become a bankruptcy statistic, inheriting a worthless pile of timber and paranoid memories. When the crying finally stopped, Emma's eyes burned and her head pounded, but something had shifted. She was still here. She was still breathing. And come morning, she'd start making decisions. She fed Scout from the bag of kibble in the truck, ate a protein bar for her own dinner, and curled under the mothball blankets with her flashlight, too wired to sleep. The beam caught another detail she'd missed earlier, scratches around the doorframe, like someone had repeatedly checked the locks, gouges in the plywood covering the windows, as if Henry had periodically pried them up to look out. This wasn't just a reclusive man's eccentric habits. This was fear. What had Uncle Henry been afraid of? Emma's eyes drifted closed somewhere past midnight, her last conscious thought a grim resolution. Tomorrow, she'd start clearing the property. The developers who'd been circling would get their land. She'd get whatever pittance would help pay her debts. And she'd figure out where a broke, divorced, failed entrepreneur could start over. She had no idea that Scout's instincts were about to change everything. Emma woke to barking, insistent, frantic barking that pulled her from dreams of collapsing structures and locked doors. Grey dawn light filtered through gaps in the boarded windows. Scout stood at the front door, tail rigid, alternating between sharp barks and whining scratches at the wood. "Scout, enough!" Emma's voice came out hoarse. She checked her phone, 6:47 a.m. She'd slept maybe 4 hours. The dog ignored her completely, something he never did. He barked again, pawed at the door, looked back at her with an intensity that bordered on desperation. Fine. Jesus. Emma pulled on her boots and jacket, grabbed a flashlight even though dawn had broken, and followed Scout outside. He took off immediately, not toward the woods or road, but toward the collapsed barn. Emma jogged after him, her breath misting in the cold mountain air. "Scout, come!" Nothing. The dog had reached the barn's remains and was already digging furiously at a specific spot beneath what had been the foundation, dirt flying behind him in great arcing sprays. "Scout, stop it!" Emma reached him, grabbed his collar. He pulled against her grip, whining, his entire body vibrating with urgency. She'd never seen him like this. Scout was trained, disciplined, a working dog who'd spent 5 years as her trail companion. This obsessive behavior was completely unlike him. She tried dragging him away. He broke free and returned to digging. An hour passed. 2, 3. Emma tried everything, commands, treats, physically removing him from the site. Each time, Scout returned to the exact same spot and resumed digging. By mid-morning, he'd created a crater 2 feet deep and nearly as wide, his paws bloodied, his breathing ragged. "What the hell is down there?" Emma finally asked the empty air. Scout paused, looked at her, whined. Fine, if this was the only way to stop him from destroying himself, she'd dig. Emma retrieved a shovel from the truck and returned to the barn. The ground was hard-packed, resistant, but she worked methodically, widening Scout's hole, going deeper. The physical labor felt good after months of stress and inactivity. Her muscles remembered this kind of work, even if they'd gone soft. At 3 feet down, the shovel hit something metallic. Emma froze. Scout's barking intensified, his tail wagging for the first time all day. She scraped away dirt carefully now, revealing a corner of what looked like a military-style ammunition box. The kind designed to be waterproof and airtight. Her heart hammered as she worked around its edges, finally prying it free from the earth. Heavy, at least 40 pounds. The box was sealed with a combination lock, but the metal had corroded enough that Emma could force the latch with the shovel. Inside, vacuum-sealed packages filled the container, wrapped in heavy plastic. She pulled one out, turned it over in her hands. Through the cloudy plastic, she could see money, bundles of cash, used bills in various denominations. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. Scout barked once, sharply, and began digging again at the same spot. "There's more." Emma stared at the dog, then back at the hole. There was more. Over the next hour, Emma unearthed 3 additional containers, each similar to the first, each filled with vacuum-sealed packages of cash. She dragged them one by one to the barn floor, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the shovel. The afternoon sun slanted through gaps in the collapsed roof as Emma systematically opened each package and counted. She used her phone to photograph serial numbers with some vague idea that this information might matter later, though her brain felt detached from her body, operating on autopilot while her thoughts spiraled into chaos. 50s, 100s, 20s, all used bills, non-sequential, from different eras. Nothing newer than the mid-90s, she noticed. The vacuum sealing had preserved them perfectly. When she finished counting, Emma sat back on her heels and stared at the money spread across the barn floor. $4,130,000. Give or take. Scout lay beside the pile, panting but calm now, his mission apparently complete. He watched Emma with brown eyes that seemed almost knowing. What did Uncle Henry do? Emma asked him. The dog had no answers. As the sun began its descent toward the mountain peaks, Emma's shock gave way to a flood of competing emotions. Salvation. This money could solve everything. Every debt paid, her business restarted, a buffer against the precarious poverty that had stalked her for months. Terror. This much cash didn't get buried in a barn for innocent reasons. This was stolen, hidden, wrong. Hope maybe she could keep just enough to stabilize, turn in the rest, claim ignorance. Guilt, even considering keeping stolen money, made her someone she'd sworn never to become. She thought of James's voice during their last argument. "You're too principled for your own good." Emma, the world doesn't reward integrity. She'd thrown him out for that. Now she was staring at 4 million reasons he might have been right. By dusk, Emma had reburied all 4 containers exactly where she'd found them, smoothing the dirt, scattering debris to hide the disturbance. Scout watched the process with what might have been disapproval or might have been exhaustion. She could no longer read her own dog. Back in the house, Emma tried researching on her phone. No signal, of course not. She'd have to drive to town for internet access, but not tonight. Tonight, she needed to think. She lay on the couch in darkness, Scout pressed against her side, and ran calculations. The bankruptcy proceeding would take 60 days. The ranch would sell for maybe $50,000 if she was lucky. The land had value, but the condition of the structures was liability, not asset. That $50,000 would cover maybe half her debts. She'd still owe tens of thousands, with no business, no prospects, no way forward, or she could keep the money. All of it, some of it, enough to matter she could run. Take the cash, leave Colorado, start over somewhere with a new name and a new life. She could negotiate. Find out who the money belonged to, offer to return it for a finder's fee. She could do the right thing. Turn it into the police, face whatever legal consequences came with finding stolen money on her property, and end up exactly where she'd started, broke, desperate, and alone. Emma stared at the ceiling and faced the truth she'd been avoiding all day. She'd already made a choice when she reburied the money. If she'd been certain about turning it in, she would have called the police immediately. The fact that she'd hidden it again meant some part of her, maybe the dominant part, intended to keep it. What kind of person does that make me? she asked Scout. The dog shifted against her, warm and non-judgmental. Emma's eyes finally drifted closed near dawn, her mind still churning through possibilities and consequences, never noticing the pickup truck that passed slowly on the distant road, its driver watching the ranch with patient professional interest, noting the fresh disturbance near the barn site, checking the location against information he'd been gathering for 25 years. The money had finally surfaced. Now the waiting was almost over. Emma spent the next 2 days avoiding decisions by diving into Uncle Henry's past. The locked metal box from his bedroom surrendered to a crowbar applied with desperate force, the old lock mechanism shattering after 3 solid strikes. Inside, she found what she'd both hoped for and dreaded: answers. Henry's journals filled the box, leather-bound notebooks spanning 3 decades. Their pages covered in tight, cramped handwriting that grew increasingly erratic over time. Alongside them, newspaper clippings preserved in plastic sleeves documented a story Emma had never heard. Denver Post, November 3, 1994. Rocky Mountain Savings and Loan Robbery, $4.2 million missing. The article described a sophisticated heist. 3 armed men had entered the bank during closing, disabling alarms and cameras with inside knowledge of security systems. The bank's manager, one Henry Hartwell, had been forced at gunpoint to open the vault. The robbers escaped with the contents, over $4 million in cash that the bank had been preparing for Federal Reserve transport. No one was injured. The thieves were never caught. The money was never recovered. Emma's hands trembled as she set down the clipping and opened the first journal, dated November 1994. They said they'd kill Sarah and the kids if I didn't help them. They knew where my sister lived, knew my nephew's school schedule, knew everything. What choice did I have? I opened the vault. I gave them the codes. I was supposed to be the victim, but I saw their faces. Recognized one of them, Volkov, from the construction company we'd financed. I knew they'd never let me live, not once the investigation started. So when they were loading the van, I triggered the secondary alarm. Silent gives the police 20 minutes before it calls automatically. They panicked, started loading faster, didn't notice me slipping 2 of the cash bags into the maintenance closet. Didn't notice when I told them the vault was empty. They left. I waited. Then I took those bags and I ran. Emma read on, her coffee growing cold beside her, daylight fading outside the boarded windows. Henry's entries painted a picture of escalating paranoia and crushing guilt. December 1994. The police questioned me for 6 hours. I told them the truth about everything except the missing bags. They believe I'm a victim. My family believes I'm a victim. I am a victim, but I'm also a thief. March 1995, Volkov was arrested. The others too. They're claiming I was in on it, that I helped plan it. No one believes them. Why would I help rob my own bank? My testimony will send them to prison. The 2 bags are buried on the ranch property Mom left me. No one goes there. No one has to know. July 1995. I can't sleep. Every car that passes might be them. Every phone call might be the one that ends me. I was going to turn in the money after the trial, I swear I was. But what if they have people outside? What if turning it in just puts a target on my back? The entries from the late 90s showed Henry's isolation deepening. He'd quit the bank, moved to the ranch full-time, cut ties with family. Emma found the exact moment of rupture with her parents. A Christmas dinner in 1997 where Henry had apparently become paranoid and accusatory, accusing family members of working with them, of being watched, of conspiracies that existed only in his deteriorating mind. January 1998. They're right to stay away from me. I'm poisonous. This money is poisonous. I thought I could wait it out, thought after enough time I could safely turn it in or spend it carefully. But time doesn't make stolen money clean. It just makes the cage smaller. The 2000s journals were heartbreaking. Henry writing to himself about the life he might have had, marriage, children, career, all sacrificed to guard money he was too afraid to spend and too guilty to keep. Pages and pages of circular reasoning, justifications, plans to turn it in next year that never materialized. March 2010. 16 years. I've been guarding this money for 16 years. I'm 53 years old and I have nothing. The money might as well not exist. Sometimes I wish I'd let them kill me in '94. At least that would have been over. Emma wiped tears she hadn't realized were falling. This was her uncle, a frightened man who'd made one desperate choice under threat, then compounded it into a lifetime of imprisonment. The most recent entries were from the months before Henry's death. September 2024, someone's watching the property again. Different car this time, but the same pattern. Slow drive-bys, stopping at the boundary. They never forgot. All these years, they've been waiting. October 2024. I've been clearing near the old barn, trying to look like I'm preparing to sell. Let them think the money's been found or spent or lost. Let them think there's nothing here. But I'm 67 and tired, and I know how this ends. The final entry was dated just 3 days before Henry's death. October 18th, 2024. I thought time would make the decision for me, but time just made everything worse. The money became the bars of my prison. I chose wrong 30 years ago, and I chose wrong every day after by not choosing at all. Emma, if you're reading this, and I think you will, because you're the only family member stubborn enough to come here after I'm gone, decide quickly, decide finally, and live with it. Don't be like me. Don't let one choice become a lifetime of half-choices. The money is buried where the old barn foundation meets the creek side. 3 feet down. Do what you need to do with it, but do something. I wasted 30 years being unable to choose. Don't waste 30 more. Over the next hour, Emma unearthed 3 additional containers, each similar to the first, each filled with vacuum-sealed packages of cash. She dragged them one by one to the barn floor, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the shovel. The afternoon sun slanted through gaps in the collapsed roof as Emma systematically opened each package and counted. She used her phone to photograph serial numbers with some vague idea that this information might matter later, though her brain felt detached from her body, operating on autopilot while her thoughts spiraled into chaos. 50s, 100s, 20s, all used bills, non-sequential, from different eras. Nothing newer than the mid-90s, she noticed. The vacuum sealing had preserved them perfectly. When she finished counting, Emma sat back on her heels and stared at the money spread across the barn floor. $4,130,000. Give or take. Scout lay beside the pile, panting but calm now, his mission apparently complete. He watched Emma with brown eyes that seemed almost knowing. What did Uncle Henry do? Emma asked him. The dog had no answers. As the sun began its descent toward the mountain peaks, Emma's shock gave way to a flood of competing emotions. Salvation. This money could solve everything. Every debt paid, her business restarted, a buffer against the precarious poverty that had stalked her for months. Terror. This much cash didn't get buried in a barn for innocent reasons. This was stolen, hidden, wrong. Hope maybe she could keep just enough to stabilize, turn in the rest, claim ignorance. Guilt, even considering keeping stolen money, made her someone she'd sworn never to become. She thought of James's voice during their last argument. You're too principled for your own good. Emma, the world doesn't reward integrity. She'd thrown him out for that. Now she was staring at 4 million reasons he might have been right. By dusk, Emma had reburied all 4 containers exactly where she'd found them, smoothing the dirt, scattering debris to hide the disturbance. Scout watched the process with what might have been disapproval or might have been exhaustion. She could no longer read her own dog. Back in the house, Emma tried researching on her phone. No signal, of course not. She'd have to drive to town for internet access, but not tonight. Tonight, she needed to think. She lay on the couch in darkness, Scout pressed against her side, and ran calculations. The bankruptcy proceeding would take 60 days. The ranch would sell for maybe $50,000 if she was lucky. The land had value, but the condition of the structures was liability, not asset. That $50,000 would cover maybe half her debts. She'd still owe tens of thousands with no business, no prospects, no way forward, or she could keep the money. All of it, some of it, enough to matter she could run. Take the cash, leave Colorado, start over somewhere with a new name and a new life. She could negotiate. Find out who the money belonged to, offer to return it for a finder's fee. She could do the right thing. Turn it into the police, face whatever legal consequences came with finding stolen money on her property, and end up exactly where she'd started, broke, desperate, and alone. Emma stared at the ceiling and faced the truth she'd been avoiding all day. She'd already made a choice when she reburied the money. If she'd been certain about turning it in, she would have called the police immediately. The fact that she'd hidden it again meant some part of her, maybe the dominant part, intended to keep it. "What kind of person does that make me?" she asked Scout. The dog shifted against her, warm and non-judgmental. Emma's eyes finally drifted closed near dawn, her mind still churning through possibilities and consequences, never noticing the pickup truck that passed slowly on the distant road, its driver watching the ranch with patient professional interest, noting the fresh disturbance near the barn site, checking the location against information he'd been gathering for 25 years. The money had finally surfaced. Now the waiting was almost over. Emma spent the next 2 days avoiding decisions by diving into Uncle Henry's past. The locked metal box from his bedroom surrendered to a crowbar applied with desperate force, the old lock mechanism shattering after 3 solid strikes. Inside, she found what she'd both hoped for and dreaded: answers. Henry's journals filled the box, leather-bound notebooks spanning 3 decades. Their pages covered in tight, cramped handwriting that grew increasingly erratic over time. Alongside them, newspaper clippings preserved in plastic sleeves documented a story Emma had never heard. Denver Post, November 3, 1994. Rocky Mountain Savings and Loan Robbery, $4.2 million missing. The article described a sophisticated heist. 3 armed men had entered the bank during closing, disabling alarms and cameras with inside knowledge of security systems. The bank's manager, one Emma Hartwell, had been forced at gunpoint to open the vault. The robbers escaped with the contents, over $4 million in cash that the bank had been preparing for Federal Reserve transport. No one was injured. The thieves were never caught. The money was never recovered. Emma's hands trembled as she set down the clipping and opened the first journal, dated November 1994. They said they'd kill Sarah and the kids if I didn't help them. They knew where my sister lived, knew my nephew's school schedule, knew everything. What choice did I have? I opened the vault. I gave them the codes. I was supposed to be the victim, but I saw their faces. Recognized one of them, Volkov, from the construction company we'd financed. I knew they'd never let me live, not once the investigation started. So when they were loading the van, I triggered the secondary alarm. Silent gives the police 20 minutes before it calls automatically. They panicked, started loading faster, didn't notice me slipping 2 of the cash bags into the maintenance closet. Didn't notice when I told them the vault was empty. They left. I waited. Then I took those bags and I ran. Emma read on, her coffee growing cold beside her, daylight fading outside the boarded windows. Henry's entries painted a picture of escalating paranoia and crushing guilt. December 1994. The police questioned me for 6 hours. I told them the truth about everything except the missing bags. They believe I'm a victim. My family believes I'm a victim. I am a victim. But I'm also a thief. March 1995, Volkov was arrested. The others too. They're claiming I was in on it, that I helped plan it. No one believes them. Why would I help rob my own bank? My testimony will send them to prison. The 2 bags are buried on the ranch property Mom left me. No one goes there. No one has to know. July 1995. I can't sleep. Every car that passes might be them. Every phone call might be the one that ends me. I was going to turn in the money after the trial, I swear I was. But what if they have people outside? What if turning it in just puts a target on my back? The entries from the late 90s showed Henry's isolation deepening. He'd quit the bank, moved to the ranch full-time, cut ties with family. Emma found the exact moment of rupture with her parents. A Christmas dinner in 1997 where Henry had apparently become paranoid and accusatory, accusing family members of working with them, of being watched, of conspiracies that existed only in his deteriorating mind. January 1998. They're right to stay away from me. I'm poisonous. This money is poisonous. I thought I could wait it out, thought after enough time I could safely turn it in or spend it carefully. But time doesn't make stolen money clean. It just makes the cage smaller. The 2000s journals were heartbreaking. Henry writing to himself about the life he might have had, marriage, children, career, all sacrificed to guard money he was too afraid to spend and too guilty to keep. Pages and pages of circular reasoning, justifications, plans to turn it in next year that never materialized. March 2010. 16 years. I've been guarding this money for 16 years. I'm 53 years old and I have nothing. The money might as well not exist. Sometimes I wish I'd let them kill me in '94. At least that would have been over. Emma wiped tears she hadn't realized were falling. This was her uncle, a frightened man who'd made one desperate choice under threat, then compounded it into a lifetime of imprisonment. The most recent entries were from the months before Henry's death. September 2024, someone's watching the property again. Different car this time, but the same pattern. Slow drive-bys, stopping at the boundary. They never forgot. All these years, they've been waiting. October 2024. I've been clearing near the old barn, trying to look like I'm preparing to sell. Let them think the money's been found or spent or lost. Let them think there's nothing here. But I'm 67 and tired, and I know how this ends. The final entry was dated just 3 days before Henry's death. October 18th, 2024. I thought time would make the decision for me, but time just made everything worse. The money became the bars of my prison. I chose wrong 30 years ago, and I chose wrong every day after by not choosing at all. Emma, if you're reading this, and I think you will, because you're the only family member stubborn enough to come here after I'm gone, decide quickly, decide finally, and live with it. Don't be like me. Don't let one choice become a lifetime of half-choices. The money is buried where the old barn foundation meets the creek side. 3 feet down. Do what you need to do with it, but do something. I wasted 30 years being unable to choose. Don't waste 30 more. Whatever you decide, I'm sorry you're in this position. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But mostly, I'm sorry I never had the courage to end this when I still had time to live another kind of life. Emma closed the journal, her vision blurred. Henry had known. He'd planned for this possibility, had left her the inheritance, knowing exactly what she'd find. Was that kindness or cruelty? A chance at redemption or a curse passed down? A knock at the door shattered her thoughts. Emma jumped, her heart hammering. Scout's hackles rose, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Through a gap in the boarded window, she saw a sheriff's department SUV in the driveway. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. She shoved the journals back into the box, kicked it under the couch, and forced her breathing to steady before opening the door. Sheriff Ruth Moreno stood on the rotted porch, a woman in her late 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Miss Hartwell? Sorry to drop by unannounced. I'm Sheriff Moreno. I handled the paperwork on your uncle's death." "Of course. Come in." Emma's voice sounded nearly normal to her own ears. Moreno stepped inside, her gaze sweeping the room with professional efficiency. "Just wanted to follow up, make sure you're settling in okay. And to see if you need anything. Property this remote, it can be challenging, especially with winter coming." "I appreciate that. I'm managing. You planning to stay or sell?" Moreno's tone was casual, but her eyes remained sharp. "Sell, most likely. The property needs more work than I can afford. Shame. Been in your family a long time." Moreno paused. "Your uncle was an interesting man. Kept to himself. Always wondered what made him so private." Emma's throat tightened. "He was reclusive. I didn't know him well. He leave you anything besides the property? Papers, valuables, anything like that?" The question was too pointed to be idle conversation. Emma made a decision in the space of a heartbeat. The wrong decision, maybe, but the one her fear demanded. Nothing of value. Just junk, mostly. Newspapers and canned goods. Moreno nodded slowly. "Well, if you find anything unusual, old documents, financial records, anything that seems out of place, give me a call. Sometimes family members don't realize what they have. Could be important, of course." After Moreno left, Emma sank onto the couch, her legs suddenly weak. Scout pressed against her, whining softly. She'd lied to law enforcement. That was a crime in itself, wasn't it? Obstruction of justice or something similar. She'd crossed a line without fully meaning to, reacting from instinct rather than principle. Emma pulled out Henry's final journal entry and read it again. Don't let one choice become a lifetime of half choices. But she'd already made half choices. Finding the money and not calling police immediately. Reburying it, lying to the sheriff. Each small decision had pushed her further from the clear moral ground she'd thought she stood on. The real question wasn't whether she was compromised. She already was. The question was how much further she was willing to go, and whether she could live with the answer. Outside, evening shadows lengthened across the ranch. Emma sat in the gathering darkness, surrounded by her uncle's ghosts, knowing that the criminals who'd been watching Henry were almost certainly watching her now and wondering what. Exactly. She was willing to become to survive. Emma drove into town 3 days later, desperate for supplies and human contact that didn't involve law enforcement. The nearest settlement, calling it a town was generous, consisted of a general store, a diner, a gas station, and a handful of businesses clustered around a single intersection. The feed store, the post office, a hardware shop, and at the end of the street, a woodworking studio with hand-carved signs in the window. She was loading bags of dog food into her truck when she felt it, the weight of being watched. Emma had spent enough years guiding clients through wilderness to trust her instincts about predators, and right now, every nerve was firing. She turned slowly. Across the street, a man stood in the doorway of the woodworking shop, arms crossed, staring directly at her. 60s, she guessed. Broad-shouldered despite his age, with a weathered face and steel-grey hair pulled back in a ponytail. His gaze was intense, but not threatening, more assessing, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Emma turned back to her truck, pulse quickening. When she glanced again, he was walking toward her with the deliberate gait of someone who'd made a decision. "You're Henry's niece," he said. Not a question. His accent carried Eastern European edges. Russian, maybe. "I am." Emma kept her hand on the truck door, ready to bolt. "I'm Dmitri Volkov. People call me Dima." He extended a hand. "I knew your uncle." Emma's blood turned to ice. Volkov. The name from Henry's journals, the construction company owner who'd been one of the original robbers. She stared at his offered hand like it might be a snake. Dima withdrew it slowly, a sad smile crossing his face. "Ah, you found his writings then. Good. That makes this easier." He glanced around the street. "Not here. Come, we talk somewhere private. I don't think, please." Something in his voice stopped her protest. "If I wanted to hurt you, I would not introduce myself in public with witnesses. I want to help, or at least I want to explain." "Then you decide." 10 minutes later, they sat across from each other in a booth at the back of the diner, coffee cooling between them. The lunch rush had ended. They were alone, except for a teenage waitress scrolling through her phone at the counter. "Henry wrote about you," Emma said quietly. "You were one of them." "I was." Dima's directness was almost refreshing. "I did 7 years for that robbery. Marcus Webb, Victor Sokolov, and I. Victor died in prison. Marcus..." He paused. "Marcus is still looking for the money. Henry told you this, yes?" In his writings? Emma nodded carefully, revealing nothing. Dima sighed, his hands wrapped around his coffee mug like he was trying to draw warmth from it. I will tell you what Henry could not, because he did not know all of it. We planned that robbery for 6 months. Marcus had connections with Henry through the bank. Legitimate business at first. Then Marcus learned Henry had gambling debts, personal problems. Easy to pressure. Henry said you threatened his family. We did not have to threaten much. Henry was already desperate. We offered him money, promised no one would be hurt, told him he just had to open doors and look scared. He was good at looking scared. Dima's expression darkened. But Henry was smarter than we knew. He took 2 bags while we loaded the van. We did not realize until later bags were supposed to be a certain weight, and the count was wrong. And you've been looking for them ever since. Not me. I went to prison. I paid my debt. When I got out, I came here, started my shop, tried to live quiet. He met her eyes. But Marcus never stopped looking. This is not about money for him anymore. It's about being beaten, about Henry making fools of us. Marcus is patient. He can wait years, decades. He checked on Henry periodically. Never approached, just watched. Emma's mouth went dry. Henry's journal said someone was watching again before he died. Yes, because Henry got careless in his last months. He started clearing land near the old barn, started making small cash deposits at banks in other towns. Nothing large, but enough to show pattern if you were watching for it. Marcus noticed. You think Marcus killed him? Dima shook his head slowly. Heart attack, the coroner said. But stress can kill just as surely as bullet. Marcus visited Henry 2 weeks before he died. Did not threaten, did not demand. Just reminded Henry that he was still there, still waiting. For a man living in fear for 30 years, maybe that was enough. Emma felt sick. Why are you telling me this? It because you are finding the property challenging, yes? Dima's careful phrasing made it clear he knew about the money without saying it directly. Because Marcus is patient, but your arrival changes the equation. You are cleaning property, sorting Henry's belongings, and Marcus knows that eventually you will find what Henry hid, if you have not already. I haven't found anything. Dima smiled sadly. You are like your uncle, not good at lying. It's okay. I'm not asking you to tell me. I'm asking you to understand the danger. Then why help me? What do you want? Honesty, good. Dima leaned back. I want to disappear. I have 15 years here, but I'm still ex-convict, still watched by police, still cannot fully escape my past. I want enough money to go somewhere new, somewhere I can finish my life in peace without looking over shoulder. He paused. And I feel guilty about Henry. We destroyed his life. I was part of that. Cannot undo it, but perhaps I can keep his family from same fate by helping me negotiate with criminals, by giving you information so you can make informed choice. Marcus Webb is not stupid, man. He knows causing trouble brings attention. Organization evolved. They prefer deals to violence now, cleaner. But they will use violence if necessary, and Marcus is very good at violence when needed. Emma's coffee had gone completely cold. She pushed the mug away. How do I know you're not working with him? That this isn't some setup? You don't. But consider if I wanted to know where money was, I could follow you, watch you dig, take it myself. Instead, I introduce myself in public, sit with you in open, tell you things that could get me sent back to prison if you record this conversation and give to police. He spread his hands. I'm taking risk too. They sat in silence. The waitress changed the song on the jukebox, something country and melancholic. What does Marcus look like? Emma finally asked, mid-50s. Expensive clothes, but not showy. Short hair, fit, looks like businessman or lawyer. Very polite, very calm. That's what makes him dangerous. You cannot tell when violence is coming because he never loses composure. And he's here? In town? Probably. Or nearby, watching. Dima pulled a business card from his wallet, wrote a number on the back. This is my cell phone. You see anyone who does not fit, too well dressed, too interested, asking subtle questions, you call me immediately. Because once Marcus moves, there will be no time to plan. Emma took the card with numb fingers. And if I decide to just turn everything in to the police? That is your choice. But understand, Marcus does not care about legal ownership. He cares about recovering what he believes is his organization's money. Turning it into police does not make you safe. It just makes you enemy who cost him $4 million. Dima stood, leaving cash on the table for the coffee. Think carefully, Emma Hartwell. Your uncle spent 30 years unable to choose. Don't make his mistake. Emma drove back to the ranch in a daze, Dima's card burning in her pocket. When she pulled up to the house, Scout was waiting on the porch, tail wagging. The moment she opened the truck door, the dog bounded to her, then turned back toward Dima's woodworking truck, pulling up behind her. She tensed, but Scout showed no aggression. Instead, he approached Dima as the older man stepped out, sniffed his hands, and accepted a scratch behind the ears. "Good dog," Dima said. "Smart." Emma watched the interaction, thinking of how Scout had growled at Sheriff Moreno, but showed no fear of this ex-convict who'd helped rob a bank. What did that mean? That her dog was a poor judge of character, or that Dima was telling the truth about wanting to help? "I brought something," Dima said, pulling a small box from his truck. "Motion sensor cameras. Battery-powered, send alerts to your phone. Put them around property perimeter. When Marcus comes, and he will come, you'll have warning." Emma took the box slowly. "Why are you really doing this?" Dima's expression softened. "Because I'm 67 years old and tired of being afraid. Because I destroyed your uncle's life and cannot fix that, but maybe I can help you keep yours. Because—" He paused. "Because sometimes you get one chance at redemption, and this is mine. Help you get enough money to finally disappear, and spend whatever time I have left as someone other than man who robbed bank 30 years ago." After he left, Emma sat on the porch with Scout, turning the motion sensor box over in her hands. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and blood. She thought about Henry's journals, about 30 years of paralysis and fear, about Sheriff Moreno's sharp eyes and pointed questions, about James's voice saying she was too principled for her own good, about $4 million buried 3 feet under the barn floor, and about Marcus Webb, patient and professional somewhere close, watching and waiting for her to make a mistake. Scout leaned against her leg, warm and solid. The dog had trusted Dima. That had to mean something. Emma pulled out her phone and sent a single text to Lily. "Need to talk. Your place tonight after kids are asleep?" The response came immediately. Always. At least she had one person she could tell the whole truth to. One person who might understand the impossible position she was in. As darkness fell, Emma installed Dima's cameras around the property perimeter, her hands steady despite her fear. If Marcus was watching, let him see her taking precautions. Let him know she wasn't helpless. She'd find a way through this. She had to. The alternative was becoming another ghost haunting this ranch, trapped by choices she was too afraid to make. James Chen's BMW looked obscenely out of place in the ranch's driveway, all polished silver and clean lines against the backdrop of decay. Emma saw it through the kitchen window and felt her stomach drop. She hadn't spoken to James since signing the divorce papers 3 weeks ago. What the hell was he doing here? Scout's low growl answered the knock at the door before Emma could reach it. "Easy," she murmured, opening the door to find her ex-husband looking exactly as she remembered. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, that expression of controlled concern he wore when dealing with problems he considered beneath him but felt obligated to address. Emma. James's eyes swept over her, then past her to the interior of the house. She saw him catalogue the conditions, the boarded windows, the ancient furniture, the propane heater, the evidence of barely functional poverty. "Jesus, you're actually living here? What do you want, James?" He held up a manila envelope. "Final documents. Property settlement needs your signature since the bankruptcy filing came through. I could have mailed them, but I wanted to—" He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." Emma almost laughed. "Bit late for that concern. Can I come in?" Against her better judgment, she stepped aside. James entered, his lawyer's eye taking in every detail. Scout followed him closely, hackles raised, making his distrust clear. "Nice dog," James said without conviction. "Look, I know things ended badly between us, but I do still care about your welfare. This place is a disaster, Emma. You can't possibly stay here through winter. I'm managing, are you?" He gestured at the room. "No electricity, questionable water, a house that's falling apart around you. This isn't managing. This is desperation. Is there a point to this visit besides judging my living conditions?" James set his briefcase on the dusty table, opened it and pulled out papers. "Sign these, and the divorce settlement is finalized. The property proceeds will go toward your debts once it sells, but there should be something left over. Not much, but enough to rent a place in town. Maybe start over." Emma took the pen he offered, scanned the documents. Everything looked standard. Division of assets they no longer had, confirmation of separate debts, the house in Denver going to James since he'd been paying the mortgage after she moved out. She signed mechanically, each stroke of the pen another small death of what they'd been. "There," she said. "Anything else?" James didn't take the papers immediately. Instead, he wandered toward Henry's study, that restless energy he got when something bothered him. "Your uncle was an interesting man." I looked into the property records while preparing the documents. He owned this place outright. No mortgage, no liens. Bought it cash in 1995. Emma's pulse quickened. So I'm curious where a bank manager got that kind of cash. Banks don't pay that well." James was rifling through papers on the desk now, his lawyer's instincts engaged, despite the personal nature of the visit. "Did Henry leave you anything besides the property? Papers, records, anything unusual?" "James, get out of his things. What's this?" He'd found a bank statement Emma had missed, tucked under a stack of old mail. His eyes scanned it, then widened. "Emma, these are cash deposits. Consistent small amounts over the past 6 months. 500 here, 800 there, all at different banks in different towns." He looked up at her. "What was your uncle doing?" "I don't know. He was old. Maybe he didn't trust banks anymore. He was a bank manager. And these aren't deposits. They're structured to avoid reporting thresholds. This is what money laundering looks like." Emma's mouth went dry. She'd read through so many of Henry's journals that she'd stopped searching the house systematically. She'd missed this evidence of his final, desperate attempts to slowly liquidate the stolen money. "It doesn't matter now. Henry's dead." James turned to her, and she saw the exact moment his suspicion crystallized. "What did you find, Emma?" "Nothing." "Option 2, Lily continued. "You turn it into the police. What happens? I'm honest. Cooperate fully. Hope for leniency, but you've already lied to Moreno and concealed evidence for 2 weeks. That's a crime. You might face charges anyway, maybe reduced if you cooperate now, but it's not a free pass, and I definitely lose the money, every penny. It goes back to the bank's insurance company, and you still have bankruptcy, still have debts, still have no business, and no prospects. You do the right thing and end up exactly where you started, broke and desperate." The brutal honesty of it made Emma's stomach clench. "Option 3, Lily said. "You negotiate with Marcus. Keep some percentage, give back the rest." "What happens?" "Dima thinks they'd prefer a deal to violence. It's cleaner. I might keep enough to start over. Maybe 10%? 400,000? Maybe. Or maybe they just take it all and kill you anyway because you're a witness. Or maybe they agree to a deal, you give them the money, and they come back later demanding more because now you're compromised and they have leverage." Lily's voice was gentle but firm. "Emma, you can't make a deal with people like that and expect them to honor it. Criminals don't have contract enforcement. Dima seems trustworthy. Dima is an ex-convict who helped rob a bank and wants money from you. I'm not saying he's lying, but his interests aren't necessarily aligned with yours." Emma set down her coffee, feeling sick. "So what am I supposed to do?" "Every option is terrible. Option 4, Lily said quietly. "You turn it in, accept whatever legal consequences come, use the bankruptcy to wipe your debts, and start over from zero. No money, but also no criminals hunting you, no lying to police, no becoming someone you don't recognize. You take your lumps, learn from this and build something honest. That's basically the same as option 2. It is, but framed differently. Not as losing, but as choosing integrity even when it costs everything. They sat in silence. Outside, wind rattled the boarded windows. Scout shifted in his sleep, paws twitching through some dream. "You think I should turn it in?" Emma finally said. "I think you need to ask yourself Lily's central question. Who do you want to be? And can you live with what it costs?" Lily reached over and took Emma's hand. "You're not a criminal, Emma. You're a decent person in a terrible situation. But the longer you hold on to that money, the more you become someone who steals and lies. Every day is another choice, another step away from who you were. Who I was couldn't pay her bills, no, but she could look herself in the mirror." Lily squeezed her hand. "Look, I'm not judging you for being tempted. God knows I understand that. I'm just pointing out that you've already compromised. You lied to Moreno. You reburied the money. You've known for 2 weeks and done nothing. You're not choosing between innocent and guilty anymore. You're choosing between degrees of guilty and different kinds of consequences." The words hit like a physical blow because they were true. Emma had been telling herself she was still deciding, still weighing options, but every day of inaction was itself a choice. She'd already crossed lines. "What would you do?" Emma asked. "If you were me right now, what would you do?" Lily was quiet for a long time. "Honestly, I don't know. The money would change everything for you. Real security, real freedom. And part of me, the part that remembers being that desperate, says, take it and run. But the bigger part remembers who I became when I was planning to commit fraud. I didn't like that person. I was angry and bitter and felt justified in anything because life had been unfair to me." She met Emma's eyes. "I don't want that for you. You're one of the best people I know. I'd hate to see you become someone else." Emma felt something crack inside her chest, not breaking but shifting, like ice beginning to thaw. "I need to talk to Dima," she said. "Get more information about what Marcus would actually accept. I can't make an informed decision without knowing all the options." "Okay, but Emma..." Lily's grip tightened. "Set a deadline. Don't let this drag out like it did for Henry. Give yourself a time limit, say 1 week, and then decide and act. Because this limbo you're in, it's its own kind of torture." After Lily left, Emma sat with Scout in the darkness, thinking about deadlines and choices and the person she might become. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dima, motion sensor triggered. Black sedan, same one as before. Sat at North Property Line for 15 minutes, then left. "He's getting bolder." Emma stared at the message, her heart pounding. Marcus was closing in. Her time for deliberation was running out whether she wanted it to or not. She pulled out her phone and texted back, "Need to meet. Tomorrow. We need to talk about options." The response came immediately. "My shop. 10 a.m. Come alone." Emma set down her phone and looked at Scout. 1 week, she told him. "I'll give myself 1 week to figure this out. Then I decide and live with it." Scout's tail thumped once against the floor. It wasn't much, but it was a plan. And right now, a plan was all she had to keep from drowning in the weight of impossible choices. Emma arrived at Dima's workshop at 9:45 a.m. Early enough to scope the area, but not so early as to seem desperate. The shop was a converted garage on the edge of town, its windows displaying hand-carved furniture and intricate woodwork that spoke to genuine craftsmanship. A sign hung above the door, "Volkov Woodworks, Custom Pieces." Dima was waiting outside, a steaming mug in his hands. "Coffee?" he offered. "No, let's talk inside." The workshop smelled of sawdust and linseed oil. Half-finished projects covered every surface: a rocking chair, cabinet doors with elaborate inlay work, a dining table being restored. Tools hung on pegboards with the obsessive organization of someone who found peace in order. "You wanted to discuss options," Dima said, setting down his mug. "This means you are considering negotiation. I'm considering everything. What would Marcus actually accept? 75% minimum, maybe 80. He'll frame it as being reasonable. You get finder's fee for recovering organization's property. They get most of it back. Clean resolution. And if I agree to those terms, I'm safe?" Dima's expression darkened. Safer, not safe. Once you negotiate with people like Marcus, you are always liability. But if deal is made properly, witnessed by me, agreed in specific terms, then yes, probably safe. Marcus is professional. He keeps his word when it serves him. That's not exactly reassuring. It should not be. This is not good situation, only less bad situation. Before Emma could respond, gravel crunched in the parking area outside. Both of them tensed. Dima moved to the window, looked out, then turned back to her with an expression she couldn't read. "He's here," Dima said quietly. "Marcus, now." Emma's blood turned to ice. "What, how?" "He's been watching you. Probably followed you here. This is message. He can find you any time." Dima's jaw tightened. "Stay calm. Let me handle this." The door opened without a knock. The man who entered matched Dima's description perfectly. Mid-50s, fit, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Emma's truck. His hair was short and neat, his face pleasant and unremarkable. He looked like a corporate lawyer or financial advisor, not a criminal enforcer who'd been hunting stolen money for 25 years. "Dimitri," Marcus Webb said, his voice smooth and cultured. "It's been a while, Marcus. And you must be Emma Hartwell." Marcus turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss. Henry was an interesting man. We had a conversation shortly before he died. Did he mention that?" Emma couldn't find her voice. "No." "Well, it was brief. I simply reminded him that some debts never expire. That patience is a virtue, but it's not infinite." Marcus moved further into the shop, examining Dima's work with apparent genuine interest. "Beautiful craftsmanship, Dimitri. You've built something honest here, respectable. I always appreciated that about you. You did your time and moved on." "What do you want, Marcus?" Dima's tone was careful. "I want what belongs to my organization, what Henry took from us 30 years ago." Marcus turned back to Emma. "I assume you've found it by now. Your dog's digging behavior, the disturbed earth near the old barn. Very telling. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, Ms. Hartwell, I respect you too much to insult your intelligence, and I expect the same courtesy. You found the money. You've been agonizing over what to do with it. Dimitri here has been offering advice, for a cut, naturally. And now you're running out of time, because you know I'm watching." The casual accuracy of his assessment was terrifying. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued. "You're going to return what Henry took. In exchange, you walk away with a reasonable finder's fee, say $200,000. More than enough to solve your immediate problems. The organization gets its property back. You get to rebuild your life. Everyone moves forward. And if I've already called the police?" Emma's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Don't lie to me. I know that look. You're hiding something." He gestured at the bank statement. "Your uncle was moving money shortly before he died. Money that came from somewhere. And you're living in squalor on property you could sell, but you haven't listed it yet. You're waiting for something. I just got here. I need time to sort through his things before—" "What did you find?" James's voice sharpened. "Cash, assets, something valuable. This is none of your business anymore. It is if you're planning to do something illegal." James moved closer, his expression shifting into the one he used in court. Concerned, reasonable, impossible to dismiss. "Emma, listen to me. If Henry left you something questionable, something that came from illegal sources, you need to turn it in, immediately. Don't compound whatever he did by making yourself an accessory. I haven't done anything wrong, haven't you?" James gestured at the house. "You've been here almost 2 weeks. You've been through his things. You found something. I can see it in your face. And you haven't reported it. That's concealment. That's a crime." Emma felt the walls closing in. This was exactly what she'd feared. Someone smart and principled, forcing her to articulate the choice she'd been avoiding. "You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Let me help you." "Help me?" The words came out bitter. "Like you helped our marriage by constantly pushing me to be someone I wasn't. Like you helped by filing for divorce the moment my business failed. That's not fair, isn't it? You never respected what I wanted, James. You wanted me to scale up, commercialize, turn wilderness guiding into some corporate venture. You couldn't accept that I wanted a life, not an empire. And now you show up here to lecture me about moral choices from your position of comfort and security. Emma, James' voice softened dangerously. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't. Turn in whatever Henry left you. Cooperate with authorities. Take the moral high ground even if it costs you financially. Your integrity is worth more than money. Easy to say when you're not facing bankruptcy. I know it's hard, but doing the wrong thing won't make it better. It'll just add guilt to poverty. He stepped closer. I still care about you. I don't want to see you destroy yourself over this. Emma laughed, a harsh sound. You care about me? You care about your image of yourself as someone who does the right thing. You care about not feeling guilty that you abandoned me when things got hard. But you don't actually care about me, James. If you did, you'd understand that sometimes the world doesn't offer clean choices. Sometimes it's just different shades of bad. And you pick the one you can live with. That's a rationalization people use when they want to do the wrong thing anyway. Maybe. Or maybe it's reality, and you've never had to face it because you've always had a safety net. They stared at each other, the years of fundamental misunderstanding finally crystallizing into clarity. They'd never been speaking the same language. James saw morality as absolute, clear rules to follow regardless of circumstances. Emma had learned, through years of guiding people through wilderness, that survival sometimes required flexibility, adaptation, making hard choices with imperfect information. I should go, James finally said. He gathered the signed papers, slid them into his briefcase. At the door, he paused. Emma, please. Whatever you're considering, think about who you want to be on the other side of this decision. Some choices you can't come back from. After he left, Emma stood in the empty house, shaking. Scout pressed against her legs, whining softly. She walked to the window and watched James's BMW navigate the rutted drive. Only after he'd disappeared did she notice what she'd missed before. Fresh tire tracks near the back access road, pressed into mud that had been dry that morning. Someone had been here, recently, while she'd been arguing with James. Someone had driven close enough to leave tracks, then left again. Emma grabbed her phone and pulled up the app for Dima's motion sensors. There, notification from the Northwest Perimeter camera, time-stamped 20 minutes ago. She opened the video feed. A dark sedan, expensive-looking, had pulled off the road and stopped just inside the property line. The driver's face wasn't visible, but Emma could see the vehicle's occupant sitting perfectly still, watching the house. After 5 minutes, the car had reversed and disappeared. Someone was indeed watching. And James's visit, his questions, his obvious suspicions. All of it had been observed. Emma's window for making a decision had just gotten considerably smaller. She pulled out her phone and called Lily. When her friend answered, Emma didn't bother with preliminaries. I need to tell you everything, she said. Can you come over after the kids are in bed? On my way, Lily said without hesitation. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Emma ended the call and looked at Scout. The dog watched her with those knowing brown eyes. I think I just made everything worse, she told him. Scout's tail wagged once, a gesture that felt less like agreement and more like unconditional support. It would have to be enough. Lily arrived at 10:30, after her kids were asleep and her neighbor had agreed to listen for them. She brought a thermos of coffee, a box of pastries from the diner, and the kind of no-nonsense presence that made Emma's chest loosen for the first time in days. Okay, Lily said, settling onto the sagging couch with Scout's head in her lap. Tell me everything. And Emma did. The whole story spilled out. Scout's frantic digging, the $4 million in vacuum-sealed packages, Henry's journals spanning 30 years of paranoia and regret, the 1994 robbery, Dima's warning about Marcus Webb, Sheriff Moreno's suspicious questions, James's visit, and his discovery of the bank statements. The fresh tire tracks and surveillance footage of someone watching the house. Lily listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shock to concern to something harder to read. When Emma finally ran out of words, her friend sat quietly for a long moment, absently stroking Scout's ears. $4 million, Lily finally said. 4,130,000, give or take, and you've known for almost 2 weeks. I know I should have called the police immediately. I know every day I wait makes it worse. But Lily, Emma's voice cracked, this money could fix everything. Every debt paid. A fresh start. Security I haven't had in years. And I can't stop thinking, is it really so wrong? Henry already stole it. The bank's insurance already paid out. Nobody's actually losing anything if I keep it, except you be keeping stolen money and lying to law. Enforcement. I know. And there are criminals actively looking for it who might hurt you to get it back. I know that, too. Lily poured coffee from the thermos, handed Emma a cup. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you a story, and then we're going to talk through your actual options, not the fantasy versions, but the real consequences of each choice. Emma cradled the warm mug, waiting. When Ray left, Lily said, referring to her ex-husband, he cleaned out our accounts, took everything, savings, checking, even the kids' college fund, left me with 2 babies, a mortgage I couldn't pay, and about $60 in cash. I was working at the feed store part-time, making minimum wage. The bills were coming due and I had nothing. Emma had known Lily was a single mother, but she'd never heard the full story. I had a friend who worked for an insurance company, Lily continued. She told me how easy it would be to file a false claim, stage a burglary, report jewelry stolen that I'd never actually owned, collect maybe $20,000. Enough to catch up on the mortgage, buy some time. She even offered to help. She'd process the claim, make sure it went through. She felt sorry for me. You didn't do it. I came close. God, Emma, I came so close. I had the paperwork filled out. I'd picked out fake jewelry from catalogs to list as stolen. I even broke my own back window to make it look real. Lily's eyes were distant, remembering. But then I looked at my kids. They were 3 and 5, and I realized I was about to teach them that when things get hard, you lie and cheat. That survival justifies anything. And I couldn't do it. What happened? I declared bankruptcy, lost the house, moved into a shitty apartment, worked 3 jobs for 2 years while living on food stamps and government assistance. It was hell, Emma, absolute hell. But I slept at night. And when my kids asked me questions about right and wrong, I could answer honestly. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. So you're saying I should turn it in? No, I'm saying you need to understand what each choice actually costs, not just in legal terms, but in who you become. Lily turned to face her fully. Let's wargame this. Option 1, you keep the money. What happens? I pay off my debts, start over. Maybe leave Colorado entirely, and I'm looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life. Marcus Webb doesn't give up. Dima said so. Even if I run, he might find me eventually. Plus, you've lied to law enforcement, Lily added. If Sheriff Moreno figures it out and she seems smart, you're facing criminal charges. Obstruction of justice, theft, conspiracy, whatever prosecutors decide to throw at you. You could go to prison. But I might not get caught, you might not. And if you don't, you spend the rest of your life living Henry's life. Paranoid, isolated, unable to trust anyone, always waiting for consequences. Is that freedom or just a different kind of prison? Emma had no answer. Marcus smiled. Then you've made a terrible mistake. The police will investigate, discover that you concealed evidence for weeks, lied to law enforcement, and attempted to negotiate with criminals. You'll face charges. Meanwhile, the money gets tied up in evidence for months or years, while prosecutors and insurance companies fight over it. Eventually, it goes back to the bank's insurance company, which incidentally is now owned by a corporation with certain connections to my organization. So we get it back anyway, through legal channels. But you? He shrugged. You go to prison. And I consider that a very unsatisfying resolution for everyone. Emma's hands were shaking. She shoved them in her pockets. However, Marcus said, if you turn it over to me voluntarily, this ends here. Clean break. You never hear from me again. You have my word. Your word. Emma forced herself to meet his eyes. Why should I trust that? Because I'm a businessman, Ms. Hartwell. Violence is expensive and messy. It draws attention. I've waited 25 years for this money. I can afford to be generous with someone who helps me recover it peacefully. He pulled a business card from his pocket, set it on Dima's workbench. You have 48 hours to decide. Call that number when you're ready to make the exchange. Marcus moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Ms. Hartwell, that young man who's been helping you clear the property. Tommy, is it? Nice kid, big dreams. It would be unfortunate if complications arose that affected innocent bystanders. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. That's unnecessary, Marcus, Dima said, his voice tight. Is it? I'm simply observing that Miss Hartwell seems to care about other people's well-being. That's admirable. It should inform her decision-making. Marcus opened the door. 48 hours. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. After he left, Emma sank onto a workbench stool, her legs unable to support her. He threatened Tommy. Yes, that's Marcus's way. He shows you the leverage he has, makes you imagine the consequences, lets your own mind do the work. Dima poured whiskey from a bottle in his desk drawer, handed her a glass. Drink. Emma drank, the burn in her throat grounding her. What do I do? That is your choice. But now you understand what negotiation looks like. Marcus will not hurt Tommy unless you force his hand. But he needed you to know that he could. This is insane. He didn't ask for any of this. No, but Henry left it to you anyway. Dima sat heavily. I'm sorry, Emma. I hoped we could arrange terms before Marcus made direct contact. But he's always been good at timing. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. Hey, want me to come by the ranch this afternoon? Got time off from school and could help clear more brush. Her stomach dropped. She texted back quickly, not today. Take the week off. I'll call you when I need you. Smart, Dima said, watching her. Keep him away until this is resolved. How do I resolve this? Marcus wants the money in 48 hours. If I give it to him, I'm cooperating with criminals. If I don't, Tommy might get hurt. If I call the police, I face charges, and Marcus gets the money anyway through legal channels. There is no good answer. Only least bad answer. Dima refilled her glass. What matters most to you? Your safety? Your freedom? Your integrity? You cannot have all three. Emma thought about Lily's question. Who do you want to be? She thought about Henry's journal entry. Decide quickly, decide finally, and live with it. She thought about Tommy, 17, years old with his whole life ahead of him, potentially becoming collateral damage. Because she couldn't let go of money that was never hers. I need to think, she said finally. I need to figure out who I can actually trust and what I'm actually willing to risk. 48 hours, Dima reminded her. After that, Marcus will stop being patient. Emma drove back to the ranch in a fog, Marcus's business card burning in her pocket like evidence of damnation. Scout greeted her at the door, tail wagging, blissfully unaware that the world had just collapsed further. She spent the rest of the day pacing, thinking, running scenarios. By evening, she'd made no progress except to confirm that every option was terrible in different ways. Her phone rang. Sheriff Moreno. Emma's heart stopped, but she answered. Hello? Ms. Hartwell, just checking in. Had a report of a suspicious vehicle near your property. Expensive black sedan, out-of-state plates. You seen anything unusual? Emma's mouth went dry. Someone had reported Marcus's car. A neighbor, maybe, or someone driving past. No, nothing unusual. Well, if you do see anything strange, unfamiliar vehicles, people watching the property, give me a call. We've had some concerns about unusual activity in the area. After Moreno hung up, Emma sat in the darkness, the weight of her second lie to law enforcement sitting heavy on her chest. She was already compromised, already complicit, already becoming someone she didn't recognize. The question wasn't whether she'd crossed lines. She had. The question was whether she'd cross more, and how much of herself she'd lose in the process. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat at Henry's desk with his journals spread before her, reading and rereading his descent into paranoid isolation. looking for wisdom or warning or anything that might help her see clearly. The money became the bars of my prison, Henry had written. I chose wrong 30 years ago, and I chose wrong every day after by not choosing at all. By dawn, Emma had made lists, actual physical lists of each option and its likely consequences, written in careful columns, like she could organize her way to moral clarity. Option 1. Give Marcus the money pros, immediate safety. Keep 200K, Tommy safe. Clean break, maybe. Cons, cooperating with criminals. Forever compromised. Could face charges anyway if Moreno investigates. Marcus might come back for more. Living with guilt. Option 2. Turn it into police pros. Legal, honest, right thing, theoretically. Conscience clear. Cons. Definitely face charges for concealment. Lost 2 weeks of credibility. Bankruptcy proceeds unchanged. Marcus might retaliate. Life not actually improved. Option 3. Run with the money pros. Financial freedom. Fresh start elsewhere. Cons. Life on the run. Always looking over shoulder. Marcus will hunt. Can't contact family, friends. Become Henry. Option 4. Negotiate for more than Marcus offered pros. Maybe keep more money. Maybe better terms. Cons. Angers Marcus. Increases risk. He has leverage. Tommy. Unlikely to work. The sun rose grey and cold. Emma made coffee, fed Scout, and stared at her lists until the words blurred together. At 10 a.m., Sheriff Moreno's patrol vehicle pulled into the driveway. Emma's stomach dropped. She shoved the lists into a drawer and opened the door before Moreno could knock. "Sheriff, what brings you out here?" Moreno's expression was grave. "Mind if I come in?" "Of course." Emma stepped aside, her heart hammering. Moreno settled at the kitchen table, declining Emma's offer of coffee. "Miss Hartwell, I'm going to be direct with you. I've been a cop for 36 years. I've learned to recognize when people are lying to me." Emma said nothing, her throat too tight to speak. "That black sedan I mentioned yesterday? It belongs to a man named Marcus Webb. He has a complicated history. No convictions, but he's been connected to organized crime for decades. Financial crimes, mostly. Very sophisticated, very patient." Moreno's eyes were sharp. "What I'm wondering is why a man like that would be watching your property." "I don't know." "No? Because I did some digging after I left here the first time. Your Uncle Henry was involved in a bank robbery in 1994. He was the inside man. Whether willing or coerced remains unclear. The money was never recovered. Henry was never charged because there wasn't enough evidence, but I was a deputy back then. I remember him. I remember thinking he knew more than he was saying." Emma's hands were shaking. She clasped them in her lap. "Henry lived on this property for almost 30 years, Moreno continued. "Isolated, paranoid, classic behavior of someone hiding something. And now you're here, going through his belongings, and Marcus Webb is suddenly watching the place." She leaned forward. "Emma, I need you to be honest with me. Did you find something on this property that might explain Marcus's interest?" This was it, the moment of choice. Emma could lie again, compound her crimes, dig herself deeper. Or she could tell the truth and face whatever consequences came. She opened her mouth, but what came out surprised her. "Can I ask you a question first?" Moreno raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead. If you were in my position, broke, desperate, facing bankruptcy, and you found a way out, would you take it, even if it meant compromising your principles?" Moreno was quiet for a long moment. "That's a hell of a question. I need to know. Because everyone keeps telling me what I should do, but nobody's living my life. Nobody else is facing what I'm facing. You want me to tell you it's okay to keep stolen money?" Emma's heart stopped. It was only 9:15 a.m. Moreno had said 10 a.m. Why was she here early? She pulled up slowly, dread building in her stomach. Moreno wasn't alone. 2 other vehicles were there, unmarked sedans that screamed law enforcement. Moreno stepped out of her vehicle as Emma parked. Behind her, 2 men in suits emerged from the sedans. "State investigators," Emma realized with sick certainty. "Ms. Hartwell." Moreno's expression was granite. "Step out of the vehicle, please." Emma's hands were shaking as she opened the door. "Sheriff, I told you I'd talk to you at 10 a.m. You said I had until—" plans changed. Moreno moved closer, and Emma saw something in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or disappointment. I ran your name through some databases after I left here yesterday. Turns out you've been in contact with Dmitry Volkov. Multiple times. Phone records show calls and texts. Surveillance footage shows you meeting with him. He's a convicted felon with ties to the same organization that robbed the bank your uncle worked at. And you've been meeting with him secretly while lying to me about finding anything on this property. Moreno's voice hardened. I gave you a chance to be honest, Emma. I gave you 24 hours. But I can't ignore evidence that you're actively working with criminals. One of the state investigators stepped forward. Ms. Hartwell, I'm Agent Chen with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. We have some questions for you. We can do this here, or we can do it at the station. I want a lawyer. That's your right. But I should inform you that we've been watching you for the past 3 days. We observed your meeting this morning at the diner with Dmitry Volkov and Marcus Webb. We have audio recordings of your conversation. We know about the money, Ms. Hartwell. We know what you agreed to. Emma's vision blurred. This couldn't be happening. They'd been listening. They knew everything. We also know Marcus Webb is planning to come to this property at 2 p.m. for an exchange, Agent Chen continued, which gives us a choice. You can cooperate with us right now. Tell us everything. Show us where the money is hidden and help us arrest Marcus Webb, or you can remain silent, and we'll charge you with theft, concealment of evidence, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. How? Emma's voice came out as a whisper. How did you know about the meeting? Agent Chen glanced at Moreno. We received a tip yesterday evening from someone concerned about your welfare. Someone who suspected you were involved in something dangerous and contacted authorities. The world tilted sideways. A tip yesterday evening, after she'd texted Lily that she was making a choice. No, not Lily. Lily wouldn't. James Chen, Moreno said, and Emma's stomach dropped further. Your ex-husband. He contacted us 3 days ago with concerns about suspicious bank statements he found at this property. Said you were acting evasive, hiding something. We've been investigating since then. James, of course it was James, well-meaning. Principled, couldn't live with his suspicions, James. He'd seen the bank statements, suspected she'd found something illegal, and called the authorities out of concern for her safety. He'd destroyed her out of love. Emma sank against her truck, legs unable to support her. I want to cooperate, she heard herself say. I'll tell you everything, just please. I didn't plan any of this. I just found the money and didn't know what to do. Show us where it is, Agent Chen said. Emma led them to the barn site, her movements mechanical. She picked up a shovel and began to dig, agents watching. 3 feet down, the first container emerged. Then the second, third, fourth. The agents photographed everything, documenting each step. Moreno stood to the side, her expression unreadable. $4,130,000, Emma said dully. Stolen in 1994, my uncle buried it here. I found it 2 weeks ago. I should have called you immediately. I didn't, I'm sorry. Where's Dmitry Volkov now? Agent Chen asked. Probably at his workshop. He was supposed to meet Marcus here at 2 p.m. He was going to witness the exchange. And Marcus Webb, I don't know. He said he'd be here at 2 p.m. He has a phone number, but I don't know where he's staying. Agent Chen nodded to the other investigator, who immediately made a call, presumably to arrange surveillance at the workshop and set up for Marcus's arrival. Ms. Hartwell, you're going to need to come with us for formal questioning, Agent Chen said. You're not under arrest yet, but that depends on how cooperative you are. What about Marcus? When he shows up, we'll be waiting for him. Thanks to your negotiation this morning, we have probable cause and his admission of involvement on tape. This might actually work out better than a straight arrest would have. Emma was being led to one of the sedans when another vehicle pulled up. A silver BMW James. He got out slowly, his face pale, eyes locked on Emma. Behind him, another car arrived. Lily, her expression devastated. Emma, James started. Don't. Emma's voice was flat. You called them. You told them your suspicions. You set all this in motion. I was worried about you. I thought you were in danger from criminals. You thought you knew better than me what I should do. Just like always, Emma turned to Moreno.
Can we go?
I'd like to get this over with. As she was placed in the back of the sedan, Emma saw Marcus Webb's black car slow as it approached the property, saw him register the law enforcement vehicles, saw him smoothly continue driving without stopping. He'd been watching from a distance, she realized. Seen the trap before entering it. Marcus was patient and smart and would simply disappear, wait for another opportunity years from now. She'd failed to trap him, failed to negotiate her way out, failed at everything except becoming exactly what she'd feared. Someone who crossed lines, lied to police, conspired with criminals, and ultimately faced consequences with nothing to show for it. Dima was arrested at his workshop an hour later. The state investigators found evidence of his communications with Emma and his planned participation in the exchange. His parole violations alone would send him back to prison. Emma sat in an interrogation room and told them everything, finding the money, reading Henry's journals, meeting Dima, Marcus's threats, her attempted negotiation. She confessed to lying to Sheriff Moreno, to concealing evidence, to planning to keep stolen money. Through the window, she could see James in the hallway, talking anxiously with Agent Chen, trying to help probably, explaining that Emma was fundamentally a good person who'd made bad choices under pressure. It didn't matter. Good person or not, she'd broken the law. Multiple laws, deliberately and repeatedly. At 6 p.m., Emma was formally charged with concealment of evidence and attempted theft. The prosecutor indicated they might reduce charges if she continued to cooperate, but they couldn't make promises. Bail was set at $20,000, money she didn't have. Lily paid it, used her credit card, maxed it out, got Emma released at midnight. They sat in Lily's car in the station parking lot, neither speaking for a long time. "I told you to set a deadline," Lily finally said. "I didn't mean for it to end like this. I know. James kept calling me yesterday. Said he was worried, said you were hiding something dangerous. I told him to back off, that you were handling it. But he called the police anyway. He did what he thought was right. He destroyed you." "No," Emma said quietly. "I destroyed myself. The moment I chose to bury that money again, instead of calling the police immediately, I started down this path. Every choice after that was just confirmation." Lily drove Emma back to the ranch to get Scout and gather some belongings. The property was still taped off as an active crime scene, but they let her collect personal items under supervision. Henry's journals were in evidence bags. The metal containers were gone. The ranch itself would likely be seized as part of the case. Emma had nothing again. Less than nothing. She had a criminal record now, legal fees she couldn't afford, and the knowledge that she'd gambled everything and lost. But as she loaded Scout into Lily's car, as her friend drove her to the spare room she'd prepared without asking, Emma felt something unexpected, relief. The choice was made. The waiting was over. She'd faced her impossible situation, tried to negotiate a middle path, and failed spectacularly. But at least she was moving forward now. No more paralysis, no more lying, no more becoming someone she didn't recognize in the mirror. Just consequences. And the long, hard work of rebuilding from rubble. Again. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot. We want you to tell me you understand what it's like to make impossible choices. Moreno sighed, and for the first time she looked tired. "I've been a cop for 36 years. You know how many times I've had to choose between doing the right thing and doing the thing that keeps my job, feeds my family, doesn't make waves, more than I can count. Budget cuts mean I'm understaffed and overworked. Sometimes I let things slide because I don't have resources to pursue them. Sometimes I make deals with people I shouldn't because it's pragmatic. Sometimes I compromise. So you understand. I understand that life is complicated. But Emma, there's a difference between small compromises and major crimes. There's a difference between bending rules and breaking them completely. Moreno's voice softened. And I'll tell you something else. Every compromise costs you something. Every time you bend, you lose a little piece of who you thought you were. Eventually, you look in the mirror and don't recognize the person looking back. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. So I'm going to ask you again, Moreno said. Did you find something on this property? Emma thought about Henry's journals, about 30 years of isolation and fear, about Marcus's threat to Tommy, about Lily asking, "Who do you want to be?" About James's contempt for moral flexibility, about the $4 million buried under the barn that could solve everything or destroy everything. She thought about Scout, who trusted her unconditionally, about Tommy, who saw her as a mentor, about the person she'd been before any of this started. Principled, independent, maybe too stubborn for her own good, but fundamentally decent. She thought about whether that person still existed, or if she'd already lost her. I need more time, Emma said finally. Can you give me 24 hours? To do what? To make the right choice. I promise you, Sheriff, whatever I decide, I'll tell you everything. But I need one more day to figure out what that choice is. Moreno studied her for what felt like an eternity. 24 hours. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'm coming back here and you're going to tell me everything. If you run, I will find you. If you lie to me again, I will charge you with every crime I can make stick. Understood? Understood. After Moreno left, Emma sat in silence for a long time. Scout pressed against her legs, sensing her distress. She pulled out her phone and texted Lily. Can you watch Scout for a few days? Starting tomorrow. Lily's response was immediate. Of course. What's happening? I'm making a choice. One way or another, I'm deciding tomorrow. Want me to come over? No. I need to do this alone. Emma walked to Henry's bedroom and found the journal with his final entry. She read it one more time, hearing her uncle's voice across the years. Don't be like me. Don't let one choice become a lifetime of half choices. She walked outside to the barn site. The earth above the buried money looked undisturbed, but Emma could see the subtle differences in soil color, the slight depression where she and Scout had dug. $4 million. 3 feet down. The answer to every problem, or the beginning of her destruction. Emma stood there until sunset, thinking about integrity and survival, about principles and desperation, about who she'd been and who she might become. When darkness fell, she'd made her decision. She went inside, fed Scout, and wrote a letter, insurance, in case things went wrong. She sealed it in an envelope addressed to Lily, with instructions to open it only if Emma didn't return. Then she called Dima. I know what I'm going to do, she said when he answered. I need you to set up a meeting with Marcus. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. at the diner. You'll be there as witness. What will you propose? I'm not proposing anything. I'm making a final offer. Take it or leave it. Emma, this is dangerous. Marcus doesn't respond well to ultimatums. I know, but I'm done negotiating. I'm done being afraid. Tomorrow I decide, and everyone else can deal with the consequences. After she hung up, Emma spent one more night in Henry's house, Scout warm against her side, staring at the ceiling and making peace with her choice. Whatever happened tomorrow, at least she would have chosen. At least she wouldn't spend 30 years trapped by indecision. Henry's ghost could finally rest, and Emma could finally move forward, toward redemption or damnation. She'd know soon enough. The diner was nearly empty at 8 a.m. Just the morning cook and a waitress refilling coffee for a couple of truckers at the counter. Emma arrived first, chose a booth at the back with clear sightlines to both entrances. Scout was safely at Lily's house. The letter was in Lily's mailbox. Everything was arranged. Dima arrived 5 minutes later, looking grim. Marcus is coming. But Emma, I must warn you, he will not appreciate being summoned. I don't care what he appreciates. You should care. Patient men are most dangerous when you challenge their control. Marcus entered at exactly 8 a.m., punctual as always. He wore a different suit today, navy blue, impeccably tailored, and carried himself with the same unsettling calm. He slid into the booth across from Emma, nodded to Dima beside her. "Miss Hartwell, I appreciate your willingness to meet. Have you made a decision?" "I have." Emma's voice was steadier than she felt. "I'm offering you $3.6 million. I keep 400,000, split between Dima and myself. 200,000 each." Marcus smiled slightly. "That's more than I offered you. It's also substantially more than you have now, which is nothing. And it's the only offer you're getting. Take it or walk away." Bold. Marcus leaned back, studying her. "What makes you think you have leverage to negotiate upward?" "Because I can make this very complicated for you. I can turn it into the police, tie it up in evidence for years. I can hide it somewhere else, and you'll spend another decade searching. Or I can give it to you today, cleanly, and we all move on. Your choice. And if I simply take it, you've already shown me where it's buried. Then you'll have to dig up my entire property, while Sheriff Moreno is actively investigating why you're watching it. She's already connected you to Henry. She's already suspicious. How long do you think you can operate in this town with a sheriff watching your every move?" Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Emma had surprised him. $3.6 million, she repeated. "Final offer. You have 10 seconds to decide." The silence stretched. Dima sat rigid beside her, barely breathing. "Fine," Marcus said finally. $3.6 million. You and Dimitri split the remainder. But I want the transfer completed today. This afternoon, agreed? Emma felt a rush of relief and terror in equal measure. "Agreed, but we do it properly. Written terms, witnessed by Dima. You guarantee my safety and Tommy Valdez's safety. You leave this town and never come back? Acceptable." Marcus pulled out his phone, began typing. "I'll have terms drafted within the hour. We'll meet at your property at 2 p.m. for the exchange." Emma nodded. This was happening. She was really doing this. Marcus sent the message, set down his phone, and for the first time, his expression softened slightly. "I respect what you've done here, Ms. Hartwell. Standing up to me, negotiating from weakness as if it were strength. That takes courage. Your uncle never had that kind of spine. My uncle spent 30 years as your prisoner. I won't make the same mistake." "Wise," Marcus stood. "2 p.m., don't be late." After he left, Emma sagged against the booth, adrenaline crashing. She'd done it. Negotiated with a criminal enforcer and come out ahead, not winning, but surviving. $400,000 wouldn't solve everything, but it would be enough. Enough to pay off debts, start over, maybe even rebuild her guiding business on a smaller scale. Dima was staring at her with something like admiration. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Emma checked her phone. 8:47 a.m. She had until 10 a.m. before Sheriff Moreno returned for answers. Plenty of time to complete the exchange with Marcus, and then... What, tell Moreno the truth? Lie again? She'd deal with that after 2 p.m. "I need to get back to the ranch, make sure everything is ready," Emma said. "You'll be there at 2 p.m.? As witness?" "Of course, Emma." Dima hesitated. "You understand this makes us partners in crime, yes? We are both now guilty of theft, concealment, dealing with criminal organization. If this goes wrong, I know, but it won't go wrong. Marcus gets what he wants, we get what we need, everyone moves on." She wanted to believe it. She almost did. Emma drove back to the ranch, mentally calculating logistics. She'd need to dig up the containers, have them ready for Marcus. She'd need to count out her and Dima's share before handing over the rest. She'd need... A sheriff's vehicle was parked in her driveway.